It is impossible for my brain to comprehend that Pokemon Sword and Shield is the halfway point for my channel. It feels too new. It still feels kind of recent, even with the 2020s happening, but it's over half a decade old, and everything that has kind of happened since and everything around it just makes this era so crazy for Pokemon, because the games are peak. And it really started to show, like, oh, this was when the Pokemon community was truly falling apart. It was all becoming toxicity. It was all just becoming hate and stuff. And even though cheating had already ruined Pokemon for almost a decade by this point, we really felt it in Generation 7, but Generation 8 showed, like, yep, it is impossible to have a functioning community or playable games with how much the Pokemon community supports cheating, because it just throws away everything the game has to offer. And I also want to break down, like, the history and context of my channel, because the dislike botting was relatively fresh. And the sad thing is, I couldn't fully enjoy Pokemon Sword and Shield because I knew my channel was toast by that point in 2019 because of 2 years of dislike botting, receiving millions of fraudulent dislikes and also algorithm suppression and stuff designed to destroy my channel. And it worked, and YouTube and Google have so much contempt for their creators that nothing has been done about it 6 years later, which is another crazy thing to consider, is that my channel has been dislike botted longer than it hasn't. It's been dislike botted for 2/3 of its time doing Pokemon, and that's probably the thing that hurts the most about my channel in retrospect, is how short-lived it was. Like 2013 to 2017, that was it. That was all I had, and in that time I literally became the #1 PokeTuber. So it shows, like, one of the largest dislike botting attacks ever in the history of YouTube is what was needed to take my channel down, as well as non-stop brigading. There's still, like, you know, millions of hate views and stuff. A lot of people just constantly after me because I'm against line cheating and stealing in Pokemon, and then you just slip through the cracks and you get canceled and vanish forever. That's just how social media works, especially with that. And it also seems like there's a manual shadow ban on my channel, which has also affected tons of other people. Again, I'm lost in some file cabinet somewhere, even though other channels are getting reinstated and getting their promotion back. I'm not. But wow, everything that, like, happened up into Pokemon Sword and Shield, that felt like a lifetime of work because of just how active Pokemon was. And it's also kind of weird with Pokemon Sword and Shield because that's when we started feeling and noticing that the trailers weren't enough to promote the game, but maybe that was kind of misplaced because, like, now by comparison, it's like, oh, Pokemon Sword and Shield gave us a good amount. It wasn't that, like, the problem is 2016 was too good. Generation 7 had so much hype and promotion that unless you only full throttle 11 out of 10 for every Pokemon game, it's going to feel bad. But at least by comparison, it's like, actually, yeah, we still got a ton for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and it kept all the energy, and it was just great overall. And again, in retrospect, it's like, oh, actually, it just turns out 90% of the Pokemon community is evil, and, like, over 95% is cheating, and that's why everything feels bad. Like, we can survive a low news time if it isn't all cheaters and people are still playing Pokemon Let's Go, or even, like, Generation 7 without hacking, and then everyone's, like, having fun with Pokemon. My philosophy for the entire time on this channel has been, the games don't matter as long as the community is strong. Because Pokemon is just, like, such a strong core game with infinite replayability. Everyone's working together to breed, train, battle, deepen their competitive understanding. And it's just going to be fine. No matter, like, even if the games aren't good. Even though Pokemon Sword and Shield were incredible games. And then that brings us to the bring back National Dex nonsense. Also, look at me getting into it. Like, I knew at this moment to just shut up and enjoy the music and fully immerse myself into the game. I was already in. I was just, like, enjoying myself the entire time. But then the lead up, and then everything that Pokemon Sword and Shield captured, I was just in pure joy. I was like, I actually feel like I'm in a Pokemon battle. I feel like I'm in the Pokemon world as much as ever, and everything just, like, really sells it, especially this massive stadium. This is what you're supposed to be as a Pokemon trainer. You are the ultimate superstar. You are the movie entertainment, and then they captured that with all the trainers. And then, of course, you're going to have the recluse, so the person that doesn't really want to be in the spotlight, but they're just the GOAT, so they have to be a gym leader, and then all the other crazy things and little details around it. I still love the Pokeball spinners That's quite a few frames back. Despite being so simple, the Pokeball holsters carry the world building, and I'm also really happy to see it in Pokemon Champions, but 6 years has passed. Pokemon Champions is way too little, way too late. Wolfglick not banned for cheating, all the other cheaters just getting roam free. VGC is dead. Like, competitive Pokemon is already completely ruined, even with Pokemon Champions, and it doesn't really seem like there's any care or attempt to get casual Pokemon fans into competitive, or make competitive Pokemon the cool thing to play. Despite esports being a thing, but also that's falling off because a lot of the money was just pissed away by corrupt organizations just stealing all the value out of venture capital and stuff. So, like, back in this time, it was still the dream of, hey, you want it, like, if you're just good at Pokemon, you can make a living being a Pokemon trainer, and then maybe parry that a little bit into content creation and stuff. I mean, we see Wolfglick do it. Now, Wolfglick is the bad ending, but it shows the potential to just make millions of dollars in Pokemon as a competitive Pokemon player, because that's also how esports works. You know, you pivot into content, or you get sponsorships and stuff, and then you just have an incredible living, and Pokemon had that potential, but now, like, Wolf has siphoned all of that through his evil and malicious behavior. Wolf is just an unskilled loser that had to cheat and then lie about it to steal prize money and opportunity from others, and he's also praised abusers. So people, like, going all over the top, like, Wolf is a SA survivor when he got his butt touched a couple times by fans. Not cool, but that is... like, he diminishes it himself by saying, I wouldn't wish this away, and it's the smallest problem, so I don't want you guys thinking this has anything to do with me stepping back from VGC. Wolf diminishes it, and then his community further diminishes actual survivors of super serious stuff. So that whole thing is weird, but also shows, like, how manipulative Wolfglick is, which is not a surprise, because again, the dude's entire life is lying, cheating, stealing, and then he also praises abusers when it suits him, so he doesn't care about any of that stuff. And then it worked, because his idiot and toxic audience just kind of fell for that, and now we can, like, see how that has, like, grown from that, because Wolf said, like, I don't want you guys treating this any different. So that's where we're at a community, that you are a survivor if you get your butt touched by a fan at events, and then do nothing about it, despite being surrounded by staff and a film crew some of the time, and then you also have your friends around and stuff. Not a big deal, but then uses it as an excuse at some point, and then he just gets to get away with it, like he's gone away with cheating for well over a decade. And then this was also like where we can just kind of see, oh yeah, you cancel Verlisify, you prop up someone who is objectively evil and malicious like Wolfglick, and now we don't have a Pokemon community and nothing's fun anymore. And then, like, bring back National Dex, also really showing, like, oh, how extreme the toxicity is, but also the hypocrisy that we bring back the National Dex, or, like, we open up more of the decks for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet competitive, but that's unacceptable. It's unbelievable. The developers want you to play more than one Pokemon game to compete for tens of thousands of dollars in the most elite aspect of the game for their competitive scene. And which also just proved, like, oh wait, everyone cheats. Like, they never even played their games to begin with, which is why they say stupid things like breeding Ultra Beasts or give you completely wrong Pokemon legality breakdowns. It's like, ah yes, you never played, you just cheated the entire time. When literally 0 people were forced to pay $500 to get an Urshifu or whatever for, like, one tournament. Like, these situations being described and the excuses made by cheaters, by proven cheaters, also just kind of shows, like, man, it's so terrible what happened in Pokemon. And then it's like that domino meme of, like, Verlisify getting dislike botted and then the Pokemon community just being the worst. Little did he know how much worse it would get. Like, I was already bummed out at this point because I knew the viewership was lower than it should be, even on, like, the Pokemon Sword and Shield streams and stuff. And it's like, yeah, the evil had already won in this community. I knew it was going bad, but I didn't know how much worse it would get from here, because it was, like, still salvageable. And, like, looking back, I'm even impressed. I'm like, oh, I thought I got way lower than, like, 100,000 views on my first hours of Pokemon Sword and Shield gameplay, like my first stream and stuff, because it looked a lot lower, but, like, my videos actually got promoted back then. Not when you get more shadow banned and then get 6 more years of dislike botting, where it becomes completely impossible to get recommended. My competitive from scratch, that actually slammed for Pokemon Let's Go. So I was, like, watching it where it was going down, and then also the Pokemon community falling behind with it. The first ranked also doing well, and then, like, for some reason, out of nowhere, like, the game lasted 2 weeks, and then just completely evaporated and didn't exist, and then, like, no one really played competitive all that much. So in the moment, I was like, wow, Pokemon Sword and Shield is the bottom because of all the brigading and hate and dislike botting and shadow banning and stuff. And then, like, yeah, you can even see how I could feel that, where it's like, oh, I'm doing the competitive trailer breakdown, or competitive planning, and then some other trailer breakdowns and stuff. It's like, yeah, 10,000 views. Yeah, that's not good. And then everyone was, like, upset at Pokemon Let's Go, but Pokemon Let's Go still did really well for me. And the silly thing, or, like, the weird thing is Pokemon Quest has, like, carried my channel more than anything. Like, all the guides and all that content have actually sustained better than any other Pokemon game. But no Pokemon Quest 2, because I'm just forced to live in the worst, most cursed timeline with everything that's going on. Where it's like, yep, no Pokemon Quest 2, Pokemon Champions is too late. Wolf, despite even, like, constant modern cheating, never gets punished because Chris Brown, the Pokemon company, is corrupt. And then everything and everyone is evil when it comes to Pokemon. And now I'm just stuck here. But then, like, you can look back and just see, like, oh yeah, Pokemon Sword and Shield was still great. This game hated on for no reason. Where it's like, if Pokemon Sword and Shield isn't a top 5 game, you're not a Pokemon fan. And it should be top 3. Like, this is incredible what this game brought and all the things that were going on. Hop, as a character, he has, like, an incredible story behind people. Like, oh, there's no real story to Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's like, you didn't play the game, you didn't pay attention, you're an idiot that thinks Pokemon Legends ZA is good. It's like, we can see so much destruction and all this weird stuff that happened to Pokemon from Game Freak since this point. The spirit of Pokemon, Pokemon Legends, the removal of Pokemon Let's Go. Like, it all makes sense. And it's also kind of like a sad thing where, yeah, things don't get better. Like, if you think it's bad now, it's only getting worse. Thing can't get any worse, it absolutely will get 100 times worse, and you won't know it at that time. Then you'll look back fondly. Even though I already knew, like, I was enjoying it. I was having fun. The first reaction to the trailer for Pokemon Sword and Shield, when they started like boo doo 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 on the trailer intro into Route 1, that made me tear up. I'm like, holy shit, this game's great. We had a weak news season, but the game was still really good. And I've only ever said Pokemon Sword and Shield is amazing, and then people say Verlisify hates everything, when I'm the only Poketuber that love Pokemon Let's Go, love Pokemon Sword and Shield, considers Pokemon Scarlet and Violet amazing, defends Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shine Pearl still great games, everything else going on. But there's just like so much hate for the anti-Pokemon stuff. But then we've seen this. I've covered the methodical destruction of Pokemon through Black and White in Generation 5. And that's unfortunately where Masuda wavered, and he didn't have faith in the existing fans and tried to cater to the new generation, and now here we are. But, like, look at how awesome everything about Pokemon Sword and Shield is. And then if you go back and play it, you're just like, wow, this is great. DLC came out, and that was amazing. And then the DLC was also where everything just kind of, like, fell off harder. It's like, bro, how? How do we not have players? How do we not have people engaging with how awesome all this stuff is? And all that just representing the halfway point, which I guess kind of makes sense when, like, you look at the volume of games. But there was even a year without games where it's like we went X, Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha, Sapphire, no year, Sun, Moon, Ultra Moon, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and then Sword and Shield trailers and stuff. So like that just like slammed so much content. But it's DLC game wait, DLC game wait, ZA. Man, what a crap 6 years. And then Pokemon Sword and Shield, despite like being a massively selling game, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being a massively selling game, less community, less engagement, less interaction, less like people playing Pokemon and trying to just make everything feel good compared to Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire still pretty well thriving as well. But also, Pokemon Sun and Moon did fall off really quick. But every game has just fallen off like faster and faster than the last, and there's no stopping that for some reason because there's no Pokemon fans anymore, which is like one of the saddest realizations and things about it. No matter how good the games are, it's like Sun and Moon, very good games, but when everyone just cheats everything, that was like 98%. Like I think Pokemon Sun and Moon might be the game that has the most content locked up in the post game for competitive, or like the most playtime. Ignoring, you know, Generation 5 not having a Destiny Knot or something. But it felt like everything about Sun and Moon was like, hey, we want people playing competitive. We want VGC to be taken seriously. So here's where you can get all of that quality of life. Like it was X and Y level grind, but with quality of life that really enhanced all of that stuff. And then people just cheated more than ever. And then no matter how much easier it got, everyone just cheated more than ever. And again, now we don't have a community and everyone sucks. yeah, like what happened? All of a sudden, the last couple of years have just gone. Last 3 years were nothing, and then Sword and Shield, I will say, like, into the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra are fine, but then Brilliant Diamond Shine Pearl, Legends Arceus, no one cared about that. And it's like, yeah, it is actually just, the first 6 years were so intense. And then you get to go back and be like, I kind of only got to enjoy half of that, like 4 of those 6 years, because then it was dislike botting and then trying to salvage and scrape all of that stuff together. And then because of that, everything has just been a blur of like trying to scramble, even though like I don't remember anything from like Generation 7. I was working way too hard. I was overclocked to the max, not burning out, but I was like on burnout levels of work. And then I got dislike bot, and then everything just went crazy. So I don't remember anything until Pokemon Let's Go. Second best Pokemon games though, at least those, like the awesomeness of Pokemon Let's Go created some pretty strong foundational memories, core memories. And then Sword and Shield was also awesome. Like I did my best competitive work in Let's Go and Sword and Shield, which is kind of crazy, like how in I was, and then everything else I covered because of that. Like we hit rank 3. I did it, chat. Pokemon Sword and Shield was so crazy for me competitively. It's also one of those things where like, I don't think I can ever understand how good I was, how hard I was peaking competitive Pokemon, because I was locked in, because I made my trainer, I lived it, and then I just became the best Pokemon player ever because of it. And then my performance and stuff reflected that, while my life was falling apart and everything was getting destroyed, and I knew it was only getting worse because of the dislike botting. Like, this is me under immense stress and still like finding my element and not believing the crazy things going on, and not and no matter how much I try to think and look back and find all my videos, I played too much Pokemon Sword and Shield. I did too good at Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that's also where like a lot of my competitive understanding has transitioned and a lot of my theory has developed. So like, that's another weird thing about it. As my channel is getting like artificially destroyed beyond powers of my control, into like a complete cancellation, I was putting out the best battles, I was doing some of my best work, my content has only grown and improved, my guides have only gotten more precise for less reward. And then the same thing on the battles, where like my understanding of Pokemon has gotten so crazy, but only like 3 people understand it. And I transitioned that into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where I still did really, really well in the worst balanced, ugliest competitive format and meta Pokemon has ever seen. And then despite the massive quality of life in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, cheating only becoming more and more impactful because we have Pokemon like Ursaluna and like all these crazy power creep Pokemon being harder to obtain, well then everyone just cheats those in, and now it's even harder to play the game and harder to play against us, while we're also in the ugliest meta ever that actually no American players are playing, so it's just Japanese players that hate setup. So it's been an awful time for me, but I still found my footing. I still developed my theory. Damage theory really took off, made some really cool movesets, had a lot of fun with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet battles. But then it's like, man, I just went so much harder in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and it worked out so well. And here's the battle that ruined my life, where also I get like Thunder Punch, paralyzed, full paralysis, lose, instead of getting like rank 1. I don't remember if I checked at this point. No, I just like, nah, we gotta win it back kind of thing. And then I ended up at 3rd place at some point through all of this, and then it got super duper crazy and wild. I think there was like 200,000 entrants for this one too, so like that was an incredible showing and everything really coming together. So that's the biggest thing that keeps me going. I've still got it. I keep improving. It even goes back to like Pal World and stuff. Like, damn, I popped off for Pal World content, and that game didn't even have its full release, and like the gaming community just kind of gave up on it. If we get a run back of Pal World where it's like it hits its peaks or even goes past them because it just turns out it's the best game ever now, and people are that fed up with Pokemon but still crave, they yearn for the pocket monster, things could go crazy. But yeah, it's like, huh, I'm doing this while 99% nerfed, and then we're just kind of doing that. But it's crazy how much time has passed, and then just like the crushing thing of, yes, I only had 4 years of good like YouTube, while also tragedy was happening inside of that, like the big breakup that happened in 2014, and then the community just like hating me throughout 2016 and stuff, the problem with the Pokemon community and all that. I was still #1. I was still the best. It's like they saw me coming, and it took the entire weight of Google and the Pokemon community to slow me down, which I guess means something. Like, I just wanted to play Pokemon. It's not that serious, but it was. And unfortunately it worked, but I still just kind of like ran through everything, and yeah. So that's what I mean, that's 6 years. That's like 6 years versus 12 years, the halfway point, and now Pokemon's dead. Cool.